So, what are we thinking first off for the lore drops for Terminus and Liberty Falls? I think we can start with like the Terminus guys first.
I like when Weaver says Ricktoffen a bunch of times.
We got the schizophrenic tangents of Weaver about how much he hates Ricktoffen.
I don't think he likes Ricktoffen.
No, he doesn't.
I hope they confirm or like elaborate on this in the DLC.
Maybe they will eventually. What I'm still wondering about is if he even knows that Ricktoffen is the person that he fucking tried to kill and got his family killed.
I think our two options are either like he knows about it and he's just not telling anyone else, which I mean kind of makes him seem like an asshole if I'm being real with you, or like he doesn't know for whatever reason, which also then raises questions about why doesn't he know that that's the same guy.
Could be a sense of like I don't think he would know because when you play solo, he doesn't even talk about it. He doesn't even acknowledge anything about what he did to his family, got his family killed, burning the house down. He doesn't even acknowledge it. For all we know, he just forgot about it. It's like, damn, that is some really unfortunate trauma that I have to deal with. I'm going to stow it away because now I want to kill Ricktoff. Which is it's a really weird narrative choice, unless they want to do an insane plot twist with it at the very end in like DLC 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Or boom, suddenly, hey, I'm the guy that he's trying to kill.
I like to imagine in Citadel and Craft is like, Ricktoffen's family burned to death. That's why he's evil and fucked up now. I can imagine Weaver's just thinking to himself like, hey, I did that to a guy once. Small world we live in.
It is weird to me. That is the one complaint I have about Citadel. Kind of skipping forward real quick for one moment. I don't know why none of the characters have any reaction to anything that Kraft says when he's talking about the fire and the thing. Like, even Gray, she has her little line in the ending cutscene where she's like, oh, he didn't know that he was raising a monster. Like, did you listen to what happened to Ricktoffen?
I don't think they know. That's the impression I'm getting.
They don't. They just don't. Not a single one. Not even the person who committed it. We know Carver definitely would never, because the guy he has dementia in this game. But
he's a little forgetful.
Let's talk about Eddie and Kraft, because what was it? You, Claude, again, brother is cooking with his facts. He, give him time and they become a fact for real with theories. You were adamant there would be a connection between Kraft and Eddie way back during like Vanguard, I think.
It seemed really far out there because it really just started out as like parallels between like Sam and Eddie in this story.
Yeah.
Or in the old story, Ricktoff went to Heidelberg. He was an orphan. Here, they're both orphans, but Samantha went to Heidelberg. So if you reverse that and look at like it's like they swapped, right? So
yeah,
Samantha in the old story had a father figure that was involved with all this stuff.
Father figure of questionable quality.
So yeah, it was always like vaguely seeming like it was going that direction, especially once you look at the stuff of Craft Journal being in the Requiem archives.
Yeah, we've had a big gap since Cold War, really, of like what happens to Craft after Vanguard. Like what happens to him? Something has to.
Yeah.
But like he's just only vaguely imagined until now.
Talk about Kraft and Eddie connections. I don't think there is something that people really missed, and I have not seen being discussed. I mean, it was only discussed very little bit, maybe like here and there, but people seem to think that Kraft is just like 100% innocent, 100% good person that just treated Eddie with nothing but gentleness and all this stuff. But I think we all know Kraft definitely MK Ultra'd his own son.
I do think there's like they could have probably kept Kraft around, but like the fact that they kill him off, but also in the same breath like mention MK Ultra shit, like that's gonna have stuff going forward.
I have an interesting. I honestly think it's possible they do it in a way where it's like it's well intentioned, like he has good intentions while doing it, but Absolutely. It goes badly, and that's why Eddie like has the syndicate beat the shit out of him in the present. Either way, something's going to happen which causes Eddie to be willing to do that. And it doesn't seem like he would want to, at least in the intel, from what we see in the intel.
It's like, I feel like it's probably just like a desperation thing, because you get that from Panos, one of the other Janus guys. They're like, he's getting desperate, he's full of hubris.
And at the same time, if he took lessons from his own dad, if we assume that the MK Ultra'ing in Kraft's eyes were for the good of Eddie in the long term, for him to maybe like know, because now it seems like either in that one intel piece that talks about how Eddie has visions of saying that it's his turn now and such, which is a continuation of the Origins cutscene. It's mentioned that he doesn't remember any of it in the morning. So either Eddie is lying or Eddie does actually have, amnesia from the Ether storyline, so he doesn't remember any of that.
That actually kind of recontextualizes something we were thinking, where a lot of our thinking was, why does Eddie remember Ether by Cold War while Sam doesn't? And originally we thought, like, oh, maybe her brain got scrambled by the fire-based Stark Ether exposure. But what if it's a case of neither of them remembered that stuff at first, but something happened to Eddie that caused him to?
I was gonna say there's also that stuff from Code War where it's like Samantha, she gets the A for stuff in her dreams, so it seems like she's really suppressed it deep down in her subconscious. Similar thing here with Eddie.
The lesson that Eddie could have taken from that, Janice Ricktoffen could have taken from that, is like, yeah, do anything for your family. Maybe he doesn't hold resentment towards Kraft for what happened to him, but it obviously affected him in the long run. Probably set him on his path towards the CIA and all this stuff. So makes you think, like, hey, I want to save my family. I would imagine this is how it went, right?
Yeah.
Janice Ricktoffen went to Kraft. He's like, hey, I need the Sentinel artifact. I know you know all about it. Please give it to me and tell me the location so I can use it and save my family. And then Kraft, likely being worried that his own son would get corrupted by Prima Materia and the Sentinel artifact, was like, nah. So then Eddie's like, okay, I'm going to beat you to, like, near death now so I can get this info. You left me no choice.
Being stalked by the CIA.
Since we're here, let's talk about the other person that came in from the Ether story. What are we thinking on Samantha Maxis? Because I know this might be a hot topic in the community because of a recent TGR video that was made that talked about the
They're killing TGR. They're killing him. They're killing the boy.
So what are we thinking? Do we think that Samantha Maxis is evil, or do we think that Samantha Maxis is the good?
Her and Eddie both probably came out pretty messed up. Because if I'm being honest, if you have to shoot a guy in the head as a child, well, from Eddie's perspective, he watched himself get shot in the head by the same guy like 5 minutes earlier. It's gotta kind of mess you up a little bit, But I think it's more a case of I don't think Sam is like definitively evil. I don't think either of them are really definitively 100% evil in the sense of like one of them is the good guy, one of them is the bad guy. Because I don't think that Smote has ever done that. Even during Ether, it's like the Shadow Man Monty thing. It's like neither of them are really the evil one or the good one. But the game kind of plays off a Shadow Man as the evil one. I think this is kind of a cyclical thing. Like in Ether, you have this, like you have the Ricktoffen Maxis rivalry, you have the Shadow Man Monty rivalry, which is that essentially again, and then in this story you have again the Maxis Ricktoffen rivalry, which is an extension of that. I think it's an intentional cyclical thing where it's like just sort of a toxic thing on both ends, where both sides have their flaws, both sides have their positives, but the game is kind of messing with you. It's kind of trolling you about which side did what, like which one is the better one, which side's the worst one. One theory I have is it's kind of like almost a metatextual thing. Like these guys got out of Ether as kids, and in Ether it's portrayed as like, oh, these are the only characters who get a second chance. And I think almost from a meta perspective, I think the writing team is intentionally subverting that. Like, Chaos got canned. You guys wanted more Ether. Both of them probably came out not best to come to reactor Ether, but then circumstances pushed them back into this whole repeat of the eternal rivalry between the Maxis and Ricktoffen characters. Something that's interesting with Citadel especially, if we get a little bit more context into what happened to Eddie, at least, after he popped out from Taggertown. But we don't know what happened to Sam still. Like, we don't know, did they even show up at the same time? If so, where was she when he got adopted?
There's that one intel where it's like a entry form for him into the orphanage and talks about like how he keeps repeating like safe in the house. What I find interesting about that, and I could be reading it wrong, I'm not sure. He's saying like safe in the house, he's repeating it as like a mantra kind of deal. They're like, how does he know this facility? That kind of struck me as odd.
Yeah.
Does the orphanage look like the house?
Which is also interesting when you take into account he has a snow globe above the house in his office in Cold War.
Yeah.
I believe I saw, it might have been TGR saying something along those lines, where it's like, what if part of his plan is to literally go back to the house? Which I could kind of see. I mean, we already know from the one cutscene we see him in so far, he's not really of the most sound mind presently. He's not doing so good. So I could see that kind of regressive aspect almost factoring into his motivation at this point now. Because it's like, if you think about it from the guy's perspective, he comes out, gets adopted, and then life just completely shits itself for him, pretty much.
This lore is fucking my head up.